What's up guys, this is Max and I just got done with the EF Ultimate Break Ecuador and Galapagos trip. Yeah, so from start to finish, this was a very cool experience by nature of the fact that, first of all, I got to unlock a new continent, South America.
It's like America, but south.
Alright, so in this breakdown, we're going to be going over the itinerary pretty much step by step, some thoughts and recommendations if anyone happens to want to embark on a similar journey. The overall itinerary can be broken down into three main parts. That's the Quito-ish, Baños, and the Galapagos portion. They're not all necessarily equal in length, but it's a good way of kind of separating them. So for the first day, I fly from Denver to Houston, and then once arrived, I realized that my timeline was way too tight in order to make it to the gate on time, and resulted in me really stressing as I was the very last one off the plane. But hey, I did make it in time, and then we had our overnight flight to Quito. This is where we also possibly saw volcanoes in Belize or something. So as soon as I arrived, I Ubered over to this little hotel called Al Pachaca, overnight in this little farm country. Morning to my first morning in Ecuador. This is the breakfast that I went with. Building still remaining. Rooster has been going off about every 10 seconds for the last 2-3 hours. It's starting to clear up to where we can start to see the city in the distance as well as the volcanoes. But yeah, it is a very cute spot. I Ubered into town, dropped off my stuff at the new hotel, and met up with our tour guide Christian, who took me out to lunch. And so we're here at this local place with my tour guide Christopher, who met me early, and this is the meal that I got, so buen provecho. He then led me over to the mall where I was kind of preoccupied with finding a map, as I do love to collect my map. Given that I was kind of waiting for everyone to arrive for that night, I spent some time on homework, and it was pretty much the middle of the night where everyone started to arrive. In the morning, once everyone had arrived, we spent some time meeting everyone, and speaking of, here's a little bit of the tour of the Reina Isabela, which is a fairly fancy hotel. So they have the restaurant, the bar, the nice David statue, and the gym that we were able to use as well. This day is focused around Quito and the surrounding area, so we loaded up on the bus and headed down to the Old Town Quito. Our first stop was this Basilica del Voto Nacional, where we were able to enter and climb all the way to the top via this ladder, staircase, scary thing, and see way off in the distance the statue of the Virgen del Panecillo, which is an angel from the Book of Revelation. We made our way in the bustling streets of Quito all the way down to the main plaza, where we got to see the Independence Monument and see how a lot of the governor's palaces and churches had been changed over time, particularly this one that led us into this nice marketplace where Christian shared with us these local gelled candy things.
What is it, Chris? It's called Mistela. It's sugar with a little bit of,
Oh.
Walking a little bit more, we finished at the Church of the Society of Jesus, or La Iglesia de la Compañía de Jesús, where a lot of the walls were covered in gold, as you can see. We got picked up by our bus driver, Juan Carlos, and rode north towards the Yaraví restaurant. Warning for those who are friends of our cuddly pets. This is where we got our first opportunity to choose the local dish, cuy asado, or, that's right, guinea pig. The guinea pig itself didn't taste like much. It wasn't very flavorful, but it just kind of tasted like every other meat, but I guess it was worth the try.
Alright, anybody want it?
We did not get to go to the Mitad del Mundo monument because it's actually off the equator, but the other Equator Museum, which is down here, where our tour guide Javier led us around to all of these spots where we learned about indigenous cultural things, the geography and wildlife of the region, as well as some of the, shrunken heads that some of the indigenous tribes used to participate in. That's where we got led over to the equator itself, the one that is perfectly matched up with the GPS coordinates.
So this is the official equator. We are in front of the spot joining the both hemispheres, of course. I want to know how is your orientation, so can you tell me where is the north and southern hemisphere?
Where you can stand in both hemispheres at once, so that's pretty fun. Okay, so we believe that this is the actual equator, not this fake monument over here, built hundreds of years ago. So, I'm in the south, and the north, south, north, and both at the same time. Okay, that's the fun that I've had for today. And Javier demonstrated a couple things that only work on the equator, such as the fact that if you place a sink in both the northern and southern hemispheres, they will drain in opposite directions. So you can balance an egg on the equator, and some of us were able to accomplish that. I was not so lucky. It may be easier to balance on the equator rather than everywhere else, but as you can see, not all of us were exactly online. And this trick where one person puts their fist up in the air and the other one tries to push down, that apparently leverage is a lot easier. So we made our way back to Quito, where we had our first EF provided meal, which was the welcome dinner, a monument of every EF tour. Moving on to the next day, we drove south into the countryside, and this is where we got to see a lot of the rural regions and cultures of Ecuador, particularly this one spot where the dogs were just hanging out with us that we loved, and taste a lot of the local snacks and drinks that they make. We moved our way into Cotopaxi National Park, where the weather wasn't exactly ideal, where we went to hopefully see the Cotopaxi volcano. We had a tour of the wildlife in the region from this one tour guide who I don't remember the name of, but she was absolutely awesome. She took us on this path hike all the way up into the brush. I found out that pumice doesn't exactly float, and we got this eventual group photo at the top. We were also given this mint tea product that was able to help with the altitude sickness, given that we were up 13,000 feet at this point. So we took the long hike back down as the rain was pretty tough and wet to deal with, and eventually we made our way back to the bus, where Zach and I had the following incident.
As a pro tip, watch where you're running. Zach and I sprinted to the end here, unbeknownst to us, about the very blending in metal wire. So yeah, there's that. Too bad I didn't get that on video though, but here comes the rain and here's the bus.
So we were all pretty cold and wet and hungry, and so we went to this local cuisine place. We were able to get some food here and try a lot of the local drinks, one of which was this nice herbal tea.
They're really strong with the sugar alcohol.
This is true. Just the passion fruit tea is fantastic. Just in this particular case, alcohol is really strong. It's fine. It's just so much better before. And then we got notice that it was happening. By the way that the commotion was happening in the room, it sounded like the volcano was erupting, but no, the clouds were finally clearing and we were able to finally get a view. And we got plenty of pictures over time. This is where also Anna and Gracia got to share this dance with us, with the song that had been playing over and over. So then the owner of the alpacas nearby let them out, where we were able to feed them some carrots and get more pictures. And then the tour guide took us on yet another tour into more of the base of the volcano, where a lot of the lava used to run to kind of clear out the earth. The last eruption that took place this year that I'm going to look up and put up on the screen. So by that point, that was a lot of energy we expended, and we drove our way down to Baños, where we get into part 2. Pretty much immediately, Chris took us around the town of Baños, where you could see how it's a much more bustling, touristy, popular, and party town. And a group of us went to dinner and got some well-needed local cuisine. Moving on to the next day, the local area is kind of known for a lot of adventures and excursions, and so we had the opportunity, not included part of the tour, to actually go ziplining. So this company called Puerta del Cielo just took cash, $20, and we harnessed up and we went ziplining.
You got a really nice head start, but she's catching up.
And eventually, over time, thank you, Zach, for this portion of it.
Oh boy.
All right, so far.
Arms in, arms in. Yeah, that was a good one. You definitely won. Oh yeah.
One by one.
All right.
So then there was this catcher thing where they let you down the ladders.
And that's where we meet up with our friends. Check out this river, man. This is so cool.
And then we pile up into this pickup truck to start making our way back up and see the serene view over the canyon and the waterfall, and we're pretty much in the Amazon at this point, and it was gorgeous. We kept on riding along to come across this free cable car that...
Seems like Katie lost her hat on this thing, and they're saying this is scarier than the zip line. Oh my goodness. Okay.
And we got to see the Cascada Manto de la Novia.
We are going into the jungle, guys.
We stopped at the Rio Verde town, where we started making our way down a path to the El Peñón del Diablo, which is the cascada or waterfall that is pretty famous in the region. So in order to actually get up there, you have to climb through this crevice thing through the cave, and that was weird, and then you have a chance. And then you pretty much completely get drenched at this one spot, but hey, it's pretty cool. So then after the fact, got one more angle on this suspension bridge, which can be a little scary. Now by this point, it wasn't even noon yet, and we had a whole day ahead of us, which was awesome. This was our Baños free day where we got some lunch, headed to the supermarket. Jadley, who was with us, was sure to try every exotic fruit ever, which there was a ton of, and I could go for this price of eggs. We also went to the shop, which is called the Taller de Tauga El Cade, which is known for carving trinkets out of ivory alternatives. So it's out of this like palm tree seed thing. And so they put some of their proceeds towards helping protect certain animals against poaching. So some of the others in the group took a hike way up into the hills to be able to see the lights from the city from down below, while the rest of us were enjoying hot tub time, where this is Daphne going down the slide in the distance. Great job. So with our free day in Baños, you know, it's dinner and party time, where we went to the most hopping place in town, which is called the Leprechaun. And that was interesting to say the least, where we kept on hearing the following songs, that is Gasolina and Pepas. We even started tagging up with some of the locals there. So I didn't stay all that late because I was interested in getting up early and doing a little shopping, as well as seeing the Eucharist of the Basilica in town, going to a cafe, and getting a little bit more free time in Baños.
Anyone want to try guinea pig?
One thing I didn't mention is that there was this foot race that was going on the weekend of, so it was a lot more crowded, I guess, than normal, but there were some crazy distances that some of these runners were doing, and props to them. Good job, everybody. Not much else happened this day, in the sense that we made our way all the way back up to Quito and prepared for the Galapagos, which is part 3. So we got up way too early to make our way over to the airport in order to make our plane ride over into the Pacific, over to the Galapagos. And stopped in Guayaquil, where Quinn, my roommate, did in fact get off when we weren't supposed to, and we continued our flight all the way over to Baltra. So here's the welcome center here, and you can definitely tell upon entry that this is a lot more tropical than what we had in the mainland and in the highlands. Our luggage had to be super scanned, both going in and out, for any biological materials because of all of the endangered and possible invasive species to the islands, and we had to have our identities double checked in order to get through. This is where we met up with our tour guides, Pablo and Paulina, who were there to kind of guide us step by step through everything that we're going to see in the Galapagos. We bussed our way over, boated our way over, and bussed our way over again as we made our way south down the island of Santa Cruz. We stopped at El Chateo Ranch. This is where they house and rehabilitate a bunch of giant Galapagos tortoises. There was an EF provided lunch where I got this nice seafood pasta, and we went on a bit of a walk through the ranch. So I was on Team Pablo, where we went through some of the lava tunnels and saw how those formed, which are very different from caves.
Coming down, the surface of the lava flow solidifies, so change it from liquid to solid, and then that rocks, that lava that is up there, it separates external temperature and it keeps very warm in here.
And eventually came across some of the giant tortoises. Of course, we had plenty of time to get pictures and videos with all of these guys, and there's a pretty strict 6-foot rule distance that you're supposed to keep from pretty much any of the animals here. Some of them we were able to feed guava, and some of them even were scared, I guess, because we were getting a little bit too close. Some of the ones that we went and visited were from 40 years to up to 90 years old, and Pablo was telling us that some of the zoologists who went deep into the restricted areas found some up to 200 years old.
In this case, the tortoise that we can see here, the shape of the shell is like a helmet or like a tent, because they live up here when there is a lot of grass, big trees, so it helped them to break.
Not long after, we went over to the breeding center, where we got to see much tinier tortoises that were held in captivity and raised before they made their way up to adolescence and adulthood to be released back into the island's wildlife. And this is also where we have George, the inspirational taxidermied tortoise, who is the last of his specific breed of tortoise. Next was the Charles Darwin Research Station, where we got to see a lot of the efforts that some of the local agencies were making towards preserving the wildlife there. And then we started making our way back to the hotel finally. Also, by this point, anytime we're near water, marine iguanas could be found. Our hotel name was Deja Vu, and this is where we had another EF provided meal, which is called Di Mati. And to round out the day, some of us took a walk to see the pier and the local shops in the area, where we saw some baby sharks swimming around. Gotta love the Galapagos. Yeah, thanks for waiting for us, dorks.
They're baby black tips.
Where?
Oh, nice. Very cool.
Moving on to the next day, we had a snorkeling morning, although immediately we could see that the weather was a bit not ideal. It was absolutely pouring as we had our boat taxi to head over to the correct spot as we walked to go to our snorkeling spot. The snorkeling was this canyon area near Las Grietas. I got to chase a little bit of fish, but honestly the water was so murky that we weren't really able to see anything in the camera.
As we are training to go through a very deep underwater cave tunnel over there.
Down and you push off the wall.
Pretty scary.
Moving back up as we worked on drying off, we got some extra time at the beach where the boobies birds were actually like swarming around us and did some diving and picking up fish as well. So then we had another EF provided meal at this Bahia Mar restaurant, which was right next to the beach. And another thing to note is that these red crabs are everywhere all over the rocks. We made our way over to the boat port where we were going to board our boat to go from Santa Cruz all the way to the next island, San Cristobal. This is a 2-hour boat ride, and it was not easy. It was very nauseating, so I didn't get a whole lot of footage as I just wanted to stay as still as possible. One thing is that it was the best Wi-Fi that we had the entire trip, so props to the blessing for providing that. Step by step, we were like carrying all of our luggage here and there, so we see how very secure it is here. Upon arriving at San Cristobal, we saw that there were a lot more seals and sea lions just hanging out, where you could regularly see them bark and fight with one another. And so we got some admin stuff done for the snorkeling, and our dinner was at this place called the Post Office. Another thing to note during the time that we were on this trip is that Ecuador had an election going on, so much so that this popped up on the street. So day 8 is probably the most notable day that we have, where we made it over to this beach and we had the opportunity to see some of the best wildlife up close, chase all these fish around, and even came across plenty of sea turtles that were just hanging out there, multiple of them in fact. And they didn't seem too fazed by us, I guess because they really haven't had any direct threats from humans in a very long time. There's also a stingray that was spotted, but I didn't get any footage of that guy. We cleaned up to go see El Junco, where this cow just kind of waltzed on past us, and we walked all the way up to see this lake lagoon thing that was a little bit blocked out by the fog. And this is the reason why my beautiful white shoes still have a little bit of dirt in them. The next EF provided meal was the sushi joint where I got some nice salmon. It was called Midori, and this is where we said goodbye to our tour guides, Pablo and Paulina. Like I said, whenever we were waiting, the sea lions there were very hilarious.
You're not even in it.
This guy wants it.
Push him.
Oh! Out of the ring.
There's also this extra excursion that many of us decided to sign up for, which was on $120 cash to go snorkeling once again a little bit deeper into the wildlife. This is where we had a beautiful boat ride where it boated us out to this place called Isla Lobo, where we first docked in order to, on foot, go check out some of the wildlife there. Had some of the birds, some of the boobies, and some of the seals and sea lions that were just hanging out right next to us. So then we had all of our snorkeling gear on, we departed from the boat and started to swim to La Isla Lobo. And this is where things got interesting. Something black entered my vision, and it was in fact a sea lion, and they just started kind of swimming around us. And this was pretty fun for quite a bit, as one of them started to try to take the cord from the safety ring that one of us had there. And you can see how close they were getting as well. But it's not all fun and games forever, because Amanda from our group yelled out that she had gotten bit. So many of us were still kind of under the water. By this point, you can see Jadley is already back up in the safety boat, and the tour guide with us told us to go, or vaya, back to the boat. And many of us hadn't swam that fast in a long time. And one of them even started chasing me back to the boat as well. Thankfully, it sounded like 3 of us in total had gotten bit, and once it was all said and done, we were all fine. They did, however, provide these nice snacks to us, which was awesome, and that just meant that we had extra time to go to the beach, where I took the liberty to build this nice sandcastle. Back on the island, we all cleaned up and went to Restaurante de la Regata, Tex-Mex Grill, Sushi, and Bar. And yes, that is the full name that is on Google Maps. This place was interesting because they only took cash for a nice sit-down restaurant. So, I mean, neither here nor there, everything got paid for. We all grouped up to go to this place called the Island Karaoke Bar, and for the first several hours of the night, it was just us there, and we were all hanging out, having a great time. The next morning, we had a little bit of extra free time in San Cristobal, and this is where Amilda and I had a journey of getting food, and then scrambling to try to find a taxi all the way back to the hotel in time before we left. Nothing else really took place on this day, except for making it to the airport, making it back to Guayaquil, making it back to Quito, and making our way back in town. This is where we had our farewell dinner just as the EF tour also had a welcoming dinner. This place was called Miskay. It was a bit of an Amerindian or indigenous place that had this awesome tea that they provided to us. But we're not done yet, as we had one more day with Chris and the rest of the group as we drove our way north to this town called Otavalo, which we had one more waterfall to go check out. And let me just say that it was not wet enough. No, seriously, we were soaked, I think, even more than the waterfall from several days back. I guess there was one more EF meal provided. This was where we went to this Quichua tribe restaurant, where we got to see a lot of their stuff, including the customs, and including a lot of the music as well. Then we got some time to go over to the open air market plaza, where there's a place where you can haggle down the prices and see a lot of handcrafted items, and there was a lot to go around, as this area was also known for chocolates and coffee. One person in the group Anna got I think chocolates for $120. So we made our way back down south, and in the terminal said goodbye to everyone. So this is my 4th EF trip after Paris and the Chateau with Jose, Germany, Italy, and Switzerland with Gesualdo, and after Grand Tour of Europe with Ellie. This was overall a great break from everything, as it was very tropical, although it was in the rainy season, so we'll get to that in a second. And if anybody thinks about embarking on such a journey as this, I will note that the transportation probably can only be most easily arranged if you are in some kind of group, especially whenever you get to Baños, and trying to go over to the Galapagos as well, as that is a whole diplomatic process. Of course, this goes without saying, even though we were in the rainy season, I still used way too much sunblock. I brought 2 full tubes, and that still wasn't enough. No, you're Spanish. They have a little bit of a distinct accent down there, but finding an English speaker is going to be quite a bit of a rarity, so you make sure you have at least a translator or some kind of backup plan lined up. They do use the US dollar as their main currency, but even if they're torn a little bit, a lot of places won't end up taking it, so make sure before you bring all your cash down, all the cash looks spick and span. And with that being said, it'll not exactly be very regular to find a place that'll take cards, so for all the money that you plan on spending, plan on at least bringing that much cash. Overall, it may have been cheaper to go during the season, but the rainy season thing was a bit of a distraction. It rained in some way, shape, or form almost every day, although usually in a bit of a smaller portion of time, and there's usually a sunny part of the day as well. The money that I paid into EF was about $4,000, and that did not include flights, but it did cover absolutely everything else. So if anybody embarks on a journey that is on their own, it's probably going to be significantly cheaper, but everything was arranged, taken care of, but you get to travel with a bunch of Americans, so that's a plus. I would say that's the end of the journey, but it was not, because then I flew down to Guayaquil, where I got to see some of the areas down there, and that is because I was waiting to fly to Peru next. So stay tuned for that video where I go over my Machu Picchu and Cusco adventure.